been deemed inadmissible to Canada, you can apply for a criminal rehabilitation in order to overcome your inadmissibility. It is extremely essential that if you are trying to overcome your criminal inadmissibility, you provide sufficient documentation and evidence for the immigration officer to assess your application. In this video, I will be discussing the documents needed for a criminal rehabilitation application and how to acquire these specific documents. First and foremost, in order to apply for a criminal rehabilitation application, you must first determine whether you are eligible to apply for one. A criminal rehabilitation application is to be filled out by any foreign national with a criminal history and that would like to be forgiven of their criminal past in order to enter Canada. In order to apply for a criminal rehabilitation application, you must be inadmissible for being convicted of an offence in Canada, being convicted of an offence outside of Canada, committing an act outside of Canada that is considered a crime under that country's law, and would be equivalently punishable under Canadian law. Additionally, another important factor to consider before applying for a criminal rehabilitation application is the time frame since your previous offences. In order to be eligible for a criminal rehabilitation application, a minimum time period of 5 years must have elapsed since the offence took place. Essentially, the 5 years would start on the last day that the sentence was imposed. Essentially, you must compile evidence to show your past convictions and show that you have changed your lifestyle for the better. Applying for any immigration matter is comparable to representing yourself in court. For instance, if you were to provide sufficient documentation to prove your innocence, would be the same way to show that you have changed your lifestyle in this certain scenario. I will now mention the required documents for a criminal rehabilitation application. A passport or other travel document. For U.S. citizens, you may need to provide your birth certificate as well as these documents. Court judgment made against you. These certain documents will show the charge, the section of the law under which you were charged, the verdict, and the sentence. This can include a copy of the statute under which the criminal offences were convicted, Canadian equivalent laws under which you were charged or convicted. This can include a criminal conviction certificate or the official proof of the sentence. Any documents that relate to the sentence, parole, probation, or the pardon. These documents will include court records, judge comments, probation or parole records, certificate of rehabilitation, and more. An F.B.I. criminal record check, criminal clearance from police. This can include criminal clearance from anywhere that you have lived for more than 6 consecutive months. Specifically for U.S. citizens, you can provide a state clearance for any state that you have lived in for over 6 consecutive months or more. Additionally, the supporting documents that you can provide for a criminal rehabilitation application are proof of improvement of financial situation. You can provide bank statements, credit card statements, assets, or investments. You can include an itinerary which will show the intended dates that you plan on entering and staying in Canada and how you will return back to your country and the form of transportation. You can provide a well-prepared explanation of how your situation has changed. This can include details and proof for the immigration officer to see how your life has changed from before the criminal offenses to now after the criminal offenses. Any details surrounding your inadmissibility and any action that you have done in order to overcome your inadmissibility. Keep in mind, the more documentation and evidence that you provide for an immigration officer will definitely improve the chances of a successful approval. In the worst case scenario, if you cannot provide sufficient documentation or there are certain documents that you cannot provide, it is best to give the immigration officer an explanation as to why you cannot obtain these documents. This will essentially show the immigration officer that your intentions are good and that you are willing to provide the documentation, however you cannot. Unfortunately, that will impede on the chances of successful application. However, try your best to obtain the required documents in order for you to have a successful application. It is essential that you take into consideration all of the aforementioned documents as well as requirements before you apply for a criminal rehabilitation application. Here at Criminal Associates, we have worked with many different immigration matters and we can definitely help you out with the process. If you believe that you would be eligible for a criminal rehabilitation application, definitely contact us. With Criminal Associates, there's always a way.